The bridal suite at the Grand Celestial Hotel smelled like gardenias and disaster. I stood in front of the floor-length mirror, wrapped in a custom Vera Wang gown that had taken 14 seamstresses 600 hours to hand bead, and watched my reflection smile slowly collapse at the edges. My mother was somewhere behind me, adjusting the cathedral-length veil with trembling fingers. My bridesmaids, for women I'd known since business school, were clustered near the door, their champagne flutes frozen mid-sip, their faces wearing the particular expression of people who have just received catastrophic news and haven't yet decided how to deliver it. I already knew I'd known for 17 minutes, ever since my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number to photo. My fiancé Marcus, in his custom Brioni tuxedo, the one I'd helped him choose at the tailor 3 months ago, standing in the hotel's private garden with his arms wrapped around a woman in a cheap white sundress. His childhood sweetheart, Elena Vasquez, the one he'd sworn he was completely over. The one he'd promised was just a friend. The one whose name he still whispered in his sleep when he thought I couldn't hear. The text beneath the photo read, "Asterisk, he's always been mine. Today I'm taking him back. Enjoy the wedding. Asterisk, sweetheart." My mother's voice was thin, stretched. The coordinator just came by. Marcus is not in his suite. His best man said he stepped out for some air about an hour ago, and he hasn't come back, and his phone is going straight to voicemail. I know where he is. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Flat. Calm. The kind of calm that precedes catastrophic storms. My mother's hands stilled on my veil. "What do you mean, you know?" I turned away from the mirror and walked to the window. The Grand Celestial's bridal suite overlooked the ceremony courtyard, where 300 guests were already seated in neat rows of white chairs, facing a flower-draped altar that had cost more than most people's annual salaries. The string quartet was playing something soft and hopeful. The afternoon sun was perfect, golden, honeyed, the kind of light photographers dream about. And in the private garden just beyond the courtyard, half hidden by a trellis of climbing roses, I could see them. Marcus, his tuxedo jacket unbuttoned, his bow tie hanging loose around his neck. Elena, her cheap sundress fluttering in the breeze, her arms locked around his shoulders, her face pressed into his chest. They were swaying slightly, as if to music only they could hear. $200,000, that's what this wedding had cost, and why father had written the check without blinking, and why mother had spent 18 months planning every detail. My bridesmaids had flown in from London, Dubai, Singapore, and Sao Paulo. 300 guests had cleared their calendars, booked hotels, bought gifts. And my fiancé was slow dancing with his high school girlfriend an hour before our ceremony. Cassandra. My mother appeared beside me at the window. She followed my gaze, and her face went pale. "Oh, sweetheart. Oh, no. Don't. Cassandra, I'm so sorry I'm so sorry I knew there was something off about that boy, that I knew at the moment you brought him home. Your father said I was being paranoid, but I could see it in his eyes. That hunger, that grasping, that way he looked at our house like he was calculating its square footage. I should have said something that I should have. Mom, stop." She stopped. My mother, Genevieve Ashfordwu, who had never stopped talking in her entire 63 years, closed her mouth and waited. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't throw my $3,000 bouquet at the wall, or tear off my veil, or call Marcus and demand an explanation. I just stood there, watching my fiancé choose another woman on our wedding day, and I felt something inside me crystallize into something cold and hard and diamond sharp. In my previous life, I would have cried, I would have called off the wedding and driven home alone, and spent 6 months in therapy processing my abandonment issues. I would have let my mother sue Marcus for breach of promise, or whatever legal recourse wealthy families pursued when their daughters were publicly humiliated. I would have been the victim. But I wasn't the same Cassandra Ashfordwu who had said yes to Marcus's proposal 18 months ago. I wasn't even the same Cassandra who had woken up this morning, nervous and hopeful and desperately in love with a man who had never loved her back. something had happened to me. Something that I still didn't fully understand. Something that had begun 3 nights ago when I closed my eyes in my penthouse bedroom and woken up gasping in a body that was mine but also not mine, in a world that was the same but also not the same. I had seen it, all of it, the entire future Marcus had planned for me. Not our future, his. I had seen the marriage, 5 years of subtle belittling, of constructive criticism that eroded my confidence, of late nights at the office that I would later learn were late nights in Elena's apartment. I had seen the gradual transfer of my family's investments into accounts Marcus controlled. I had seen the moment, 6 years from now, when he would tell me he'd fallen out of love and serve me divorce papers that stripped me of half my inheritance. And I had seen the wedding photos he would post 8 months later, him and Elena on a beach in Greece, her wearing a ring that had been purchased with my money. I had woken up from that vision, that dream, that nightmare, that impossible gift from some universe that had decided to give me a second chance, and I had known exactly what I needed to do. "Mom," I said, turning away from the window, "I need you to do something for me. Anything. Call the wedding coordinator. Tell her the ceremony is delayed by 30 minutes. Tell her there's a wardrobe issue. And then call Mr. Delacroix. Tell him I need to speak with him immediately." My mother blinked. "Mr. Delacroix? The hotel manager? Sweetheart, I don't think he can fix." "Not the hotel manager." I smiled, and my mother took a half step backward at whatever she saw in my expression. "Lucien Delacroix, the owner." Cassandra, the Delacroix family owns this entire hotel chain. They're one of the wealthiest families in Europe. You can't just call the owner of the Grand Celestial and ask him to. "I'm not asking." I picked up my phone. "I'm informing. We have a prior engagement." 20 minutes later, I walked through the hotel's private garden, my wedding dress trailing behind me like a river of silk and pearls and rage, and my mother had tried to stop me. My bridesmaids had tried to stop me. The wedding coordinator had physically walked the door. I had looked at all of them with the same expression, calm, determined, utterly immovable, and they had all stepped aside. Marcus and Elena were still there, sitting on a stone bench near the koi pond. Their backs were to me. Elena's head was resting on Marcus's shoulder, and his arm was draped around her waist, and they looked like the cover of a cheap romance novel, the kind sold at airport bookstores. The kind where the heroine is always spirited, and the hero is always brooding, and the plot is always the same. I stopped 10 feet behind them and cleared my throat. Marcus whipped around. His face cycled through surprise, horror, and then, remarkably, insultingly, irritation. "Cassandra, what are you doing out here? You're supposed to be in the suite. It's bad luck to see the bride before the ceremony." "Is that what you're worried about right now? Bad luck?" Elena lifted her head from a shoulder, and I finally saw her face clearly. She was pretty, in a soft, unremarkable way, brown-eyed, heart-shaped face. The kind of beauty that required good lighting and the right angle. She looked at me with an expression that was trying to be defiant, but mostly just looked nervous. "Cassandra." Her voice was sweeter than I expected. "I know this looks bad, but Marcus and I were just saying goodbye. He's marrying you. He chose you. I just needed closure." Closure. I tasted the word. "You sent me a photo of my fiancé hugging you 45 minutes before my wedding, with a caption that said he's always been mine. And you're telling me you needed closure?" Elena's eyes widened. "What photo? I didn't send any photo. Marcus, what is she talking about?" Marcus's irritation had shifted into something sharper. "Cassandra, stop this. Elena didn't send you anything. Someone must be trying to cause drama. This is exactly the kind of petty nonsense I told you I wanted to avoid. You know how I feel about jealousy. It's not a good look on you." "Not a good look on me." I had heard that phrase before, not in this life. In the other one, the one where I'd married him. Asterisk, "You're being jealous again, Cassandra. It's not a good look on you." Asterisk, he'd said it when I found Elena's earring in our bed. He'd said it when I noticed the charges for hotel rooms on our credit card. He'd said it when I asked why he was still texting his ex-girlfriend at 2 in the morning. And I had believed him. I had apologized. I had tried to be less jealous, more trusting, more cool. Marcus. My voice was very quiet. We're not getting married. He stared at me. What? The wedding is off. You're free. You can be with Elena. You can marry her in the cheap sundress she's wearing right now, if that's what you want. I'm sure the courthouse has availability next week. Marcus stood up, and for a moment I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not love, not regret, but calculation. The rapid mental math of a man who is watching his carefully constructed future collapse. Cassandra, you're being hysterical. You're embarrassed, I understand that. But we have 300 guests out there. Your father has business associates from 7 different countries waiting. You can't just cancel the wedding because of a misunderstanding. Think about what you're doing. I have thought about it. I've thought about it for longer than you know. Elena rose to her feet, her hands fluttering at her sides. If this is because of me, I'll leave right now, and I never meant to cause any trouble. Marcus, I told you this was a bad idea. I told you I shouldn't come. You came to my wedding, I said, turning to her, wearing a white dress, to say goodbye to my fiancé in a private garden, and you didn't mean to cause trouble? Either you're lying, or you're the least self-aware person I've ever met. I'm not sure which is worse. Elena's nervousness cracked, and underneath it I saw something harder. The same thing I'd seen in the other life, when she'd finally stopped pretending. Fine, you want the truth. Marcus never loved you. He loves me. He's always loved me. He was only marrying you because your family has money and his mother is sick and he needed. Marcus's voice was sharp. Shut up. No, let her finish. I crossed my arms. He needed what? Elena's eyes darted between us. For a moment, I thought she'd back down, but the hardness won. He needed money. His mother's cancer treatments weren't covered by insurance. He couldn't afford them on his OW, and S.O. he found you, rich, naive, desperate for love, and he proposed. He was going to stay married to you long enough to get the money, and then divorce you and come back to me. That was the plan. That was always the plan. The plan. The same plan I'd seen unfold in the other life, the one that had ended with me in a divorce lawyer's office, staring at financial statements that showed exactly how much of my inheritance had been siphoned away. And you, I said to Elena, we're fine with this? You were fine with being the mistress for 5 years while he bled my family dry. I was fine with being patient. Elena lifted her chin. I've loved Marcus since we were 15 years old. I wasn't going to let some rich girl with a trust fund take him away from me just because her daddy could buy her a fancy wedding. Some rich girl with a trust fund. That was what they thought I was. That was what everyone thought I was. The Ashford Wu heiress, pretty and privileged and slightly bland, the kind of woman who existed to be married off to an ambitious man. My parents had raised me to be polite, to be gracious, to never make a scene, and I had been that my whole life. I had been. But the woman who had seen her future self destroyed by these 2 people, that woman had also seen something else. A truth that had been hidden from her, buried under layers of protection and privacy and careful family management. I was not just the Ashford Wu heiress. I was something else entirely. I'm going to give you both one chance, I said. Leave. Right now, walk out of this hotel and never contact me or my family again, that if you do that, I'll let you go. You can have each other. You can figure out Marcus's mother's medical bills on your own. You can live whatever life you want, as long as it's nowhere near mine. Marcus's eyes narrowed. And if we don't, then I'll make you regret it. He laughed. Actually laughed. Make us regret it. Cassandra, you're a nice girl from a nice family, but you don't have any power here. Your father likes me. Your mother thinks I'm charming. Your entire social circle is already here, waiting for a wedding. If you call this off, you're the one who's going to be humiliated. You're the one who's going to be the talk of every country club from here to the Hamptons. Not me, that I'm just a guy who got cold feet. You're the bride who got left at the altar. Marcus. Elena tugged at his sleeve. Maybe we should just go. I don't like the way she's looking at us. Relax. She's not going to do anything. She's never done anything. Her whole life, she's never had to fight for anything. She doesn't know how. I smiled. It was the smile I'd learned in the other life, the one where I'd spent 5 years being systematically dismantled by this man. It was the smile of a woman who had already lost everything once and was no longer afraid of losing anything at all. My whole life, I repeated. You think you know my whole life. Marcus, you don't know anything about me. You don't know who I am. You don't know who my family is. You did a surface-level Google search, saw Ashford Wu heiress, and thought you'd hit the jackpot. But you never dug deeper, did you? You never looked at my maternal grandmother's name. You never wondered why my mother goes by Genevieve Ashford Wu instead of just Genevieve Ashford. Marcus's smile flickered. What are you talking about? My mother's maiden name isn't Ashford. It's Delacroix. Genevieve Delacroix Ashford Wu. The name landed like a stone dropped into still water. Elena's face went blank. Marcus's smile vanished entirely. Delacroix, I continued, as in the Delacroix Hotel Group, as in the family that owns the Grand Celestial. As in the family whose net worth is approximately 14 times larger than the Ashford fortune you were so eager to steal, my grandmother, Eleanor Delacroix, is the chairwoman of the board. She's also in attendance at this wedding, sitting in the front row, waiting to watch her only granddaughter get married, and she's going to be very, very interested to hear about this conversation. Marcus's face had gone the color of old newspaper. You're lying, dear Delacroix. No, your family is in real estate. Your father is a developer. I've met him. I've been to your house. You're not. My father is a developer, and my mother is a Delacroix. She married down, as my grandmother likes to say, for love. And she raised me to be normal, to not flaunt the family name, to make my own way in the world without relying on a fortune I didn't earn. But the fortune is still there, and the name is still there, and the power is still there. And you, Marcus, just tried to con a Delacroix. Elena grabbed Marcus's arm. Marcus, we need to leave. Now. But before they could move, footsteps crunched on the gravel path behind me. I didn't need to turn around. I knew who it was. Your Majesty. Lucien Delacroix's voice was deep, cultured, and perfectly calibrated to convey respect without subservience. He was 73 years old, silver-haired, immaculately dressed in a charcoal suit that had been hand-stitched by a tailor in Seville Row. He had been the general manager of the Delacroix Hotel Group for 40 years, and he had known my mother since she was a child. He stopped beside me, looked at Marcus, looked at Elena, and raised one perfectly groomed eyebrow. I received your mother's message, he said to me. She said there was a situation that required my attention. I assume this is it. Yes, Uncle Lucien. I used the title deliberately, watching Marcus's face crumble. I need security to escort these two off the property. They are not to be allowed back in any Delacroix property ever, and I need you to call my grandmother and tell her that the wedding is canceled. The full story, that I want her to know everything. Lucien's expression didn't change, but something cold and satisfied gleamed in his eyes. It would be my pleasure. He lifted a hand, and 4 security guards materialized from the shadows of the garden. They must have been waiting. My mother must have told Lucien more than I'd asked her to. Wait. Marcus pulled away from Elena, his composure cracking. Wait! We can talk about this. Cassandra, pleased that I made a mistake, did a terrible mistake. Elena means nothing to me. She's my past. You're my future. The wedding doesn't have to be canceled. I can explain everything to your grandmother, I can. You can explain to my grandmother? I tilted my head. Marcus, do you know what my grandmother did to the last person who tried to steal from our family? He was a business partner who skimmed $2 million from a hotel renovation in Barcelona, and my grandmother didn't call the police. She didn't sue him. She just made a few phone calls, and within 6 months, he was bankrupt, blacklisted, and living in his sister's basement in Cleveland. His wife left him. His kids stopped talking to him. He tried to get a job at a Motel 6 and was rejected because his name was on a list he didn't even know existed. Marcus's mouth opened and closed. You tried to steal from me. I continued. You tried to steal my inheritance, my dignity, my future. You stood in my hotel at my wedding with your mistress and you laughed at me. You told me I didn't have any power. You told me I didn't know how to fight. I stepped closer, so close I could smell his cologne. The cologne I'd bought him for his birthday. The cologne I thought smelled like home. Let me tell you something, Marcus, did I know exactly how to fight that I just chose not to, because I loved you, because I believed you loved me, because I thought being a good partner meant being gentle. But you're not my partner. You never were. You were just a thief who got caught. I turned to the security guards. Take them out. Marcus lunged forward, but 2 guards intercepted him, their hands closing around his arms with practiced efficiency. Cassandra, please, I'll do anything. I'll sign a prenup. I'll sign whatever you want. Just give me another chance. Elena was crying now, her cheap sundress wrinkled, her mascara running, her face contorted with fury. You think you're so special because you were born rich. You didn't earn any of this. You're just lucky, Marcus and I actually love each other, and you're just a spoiled little princess who can't stand not getting what she wants. I looked at her for a long moment, this woman who had been my enemy in 2 lives. This woman who had sent me that photo, who had worn white to my wedding, who had spent years waiting in the wings while her boyfriend pretended to love me. Lucky, I said. You think luck is what got me here. Elena, I'm a Delacroix. We don't believe in luck. We believe in preparation, intelligence, and the absolute refusal to be anyone's victim. You can have Marcus. He's not a prize I want anymore, but I promise you this. He'll do to you exactly what he tried to do to me, because men like him don't change. They just find new targets. I signaled to the guards, and they began pulling Marcus and Elena toward the garden's back gate. Marcus was still shouting, promises, threats, pleas, all tangled together. But his voice faded as they were dragged further away, until the only sounds were the distant string quartet and the soft splash of the koi pond. Lucien cleared his throat. Shall I address the guests? No. I smoothed down the front of my wedding dress. I'll do it. They came here for a show. I'm going to give them one. I walked into the ceremony courtyard alone. 300 heads turned. The string quartet faltered and went silent. My father, standing near the altar, started to rise from his seat. My mother, already positioned near the front, was crying, but not from grief, from pride. I walked down the aisle, not as a bride, but as something else entirely. The train of my Vera long gown swept over the white rose petals that had been scattered for a wedding that would never happen. The cameras that had been hired to capture my happiest day clicked and flashed, documenting my happiest day for entirely different reasons. I reached the altar, turned, and faced the crowd. Good afternoon, I said, and my voice carried without a microphone. I'm sure you've all noticed that there's no groom. There won't be one. The wedding is canceled. A collective gasp. Whispers erupted like a wave. I saw phones being lifted, texts being typed, the news spreading in real time through every social network that mattered. Some of you may be wondering why. The answer is simple. Marcus was in love with someone else. He was planning to marry me for my family's money and then leave me for his childhood sweetheart. I found out 45 minutes ago. The conversation we had in the garden, where he admitted all of this, was witnessed by the owner of this hotel and 4 security guards. It was also recorded by the hotel's security cameras, footage of which I will be happy to share with anyone who doubts my account. More gasps, louder whispers. My father was on his feet now, his face white with rage, but I held up a hand and he stayed where he was. I want to thank everyone for coming. Did I know many of you traveled long distances, booked expensive hotels, bought generous gifts? All of your gifts will be returned. And as a gesture of appreciation for your support, my family will be hosting a reception here tonight anyway, without a groom, but with an open bar and an excellent dinner. You're all invited. Consider it a celebration. Someone in the back laughed, a surprised, delighted sound. Then someone else joined in. Then the entire courtyard was buzzing with something that wasn't scandal anymore, but admiration. But before we move on to the celebration, I continued, I want to make something clear. I am not a victim. I am not heartbroken. I am not ashamed. I am a woman who discovered the truth in time to save herself, and I am profoundly, overwhelmingly grateful for that as tonight. We're not mourning a wedding that didn't happen. We're celebrating the disaster that didn't happen, the disaster that would have been my marriage. I stepped down from the altar, and my grandmother rose from her seat in the front row. Eleanor Delacroix was 87 years old, a tiny woman in a silver Chanel suit, with eyes like cut diamonds and a presence that could silence a room at 50 paces. She walked to me, took both my hands in hers, and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Approval. You did well, she said quietly so that only I could hear. Better than well. You did what I would have done, that I've been waiting 33 years to see you show your teeth. I was starting to worry you didn't have any. I had them, I said. I just never needed to use them before. Well, she smiled, and it was the smile of a predator who recognized her own blood. Now you have, and I suspect you'll find that you enjoy it. The reception was extraordinary. The string quartet pivoted to jazz. The champagne flowed. MY bridesmaids gave impromptu toasts about female empowerment that had the entire ballroom cheering. My father cornered 3 of his business associates and renegotiated a merger that had been stalled for months, because apparently nothing made my father more formidable than righteous paternal fury. And I danced with my grandmother, who had not danced in public in 20 years. I danced with my mother, who cried the whole time. I danced with Lucien Delacroix, who told me stories about the hotel's history that made me laugh until my ribs hurt. I danced with strangers, with old family friends, with the catering staff who my grandmother insisted should be allowed to join the party. At midnight, I stepped out onto the hotel's rooftop terrace and looked out at the city. The lights of Manhattan glittered beneath me, and somewhere up there Marcus was probably sitting in a cheap apartment, trying to figure out how to pay his mother's medical bills without my money. I didn't feel sorry for him. I didn't feel much of anything except an overwhelming, bone-deep relief. My phone buzzed, a notification. Someone had posted the story on social media, and it was already going viral. Hashtag Delacroix wedding, hashtag left at the altar, hashtag she dumped him first. The comments were overwhelmingly in my favor. But the notification wasn't about that. It was a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, you don't know me, but my name is Adrienne Vance. I'm the CEO of Vance International, and I was at your wedding tonight as a guest of your grandmother. I just wanted to say that your speech was the most impressive thing I've ever seen at a wedding. If you ever want to leave the family business and come work for someone who would appreciate your talents, call me AV Asterisk. I stared at the message for a long time. Adrienne Vance, that I knew that name. Everyone knew that name. Vance International was one of the largest private equity firms in the world, and Adrienne Vance was its enigmatic, reclusive founder. My grandmother had invited him to my wedding, that of course, she'd probably been planning to introduce us at the reception, to talk about some business opportunity she thought I should know about. And instead, he'd watched me publicly dismantle my own wedding and had decided I was worth recruiting. I laughed out loud, the sound swallowed by the wind and the distant hum of the city. Then I typed back, Asterisk, Mr. Vance, I appreciate the offer, but I think I'm exactly where I need to be. However, if you're ever looking for a hotel to host your annual shareholder meeting, I know a place. Caw, asterisk. I put my phone away and turned back to the city. Somewhere behind me, the reception was still going, and my mother was probably looking for me. My grandmother was probably telling someone the story of how she once made a business rival cry in a board meeting. My bridesmaids were probably giving interviews to the reporters who had somehow gotten wind of the story. But for this moment, I was alone on a rooftop, breathing in the cool night air, feeling the weight of the life I had almost lost and the life I had reclaimed. I wasn't Mrs. Marcus whatever. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't a cautionary tale. I was Cassandra Ashford Wu Delacroix, I was the heiress to 2 fortunes and the architect of my own future. And I was never, ever going to let anyone take that away from me again. 3 months later, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Marcus Reed and Elena Vasquez arrested in Florida, couple accused of running investment scam targeting elderly retirees. I set my phone down without reading the rest. Some patterns I had learned never change. Predators just find new prey. But I wasn't prey anymore. I was the hunter, and I was just getting started.